everybody, and welcome back to Task and Purpose. If you don't know who I am, I'm Kyle Gunn, sometimes called the Friendly Ginger Newsman for obvious reasons. I'm a Marine veteran and the social media editor for the Task and Purpose newsroom for the last 4 years. I guess it is official now, so I'd also like to announce that I'll be taking over as the producer for the channel, and obviously I'll be hosting videos as well. I'll go over more of this at the end really quickly, so stick around for that, but let's get right to it. As drones continue to proliferate battlefields around the world, the US military, particularly the Army and Marine Corps, really want them to be as common in an infantry unit as a light machine gun, a big ol' lip of dip, and bad decisions. During the wars in Iraq and Afghanistan, and even today, the United States used a lot of larger drones like the MQ-9 Reaper and RQ-4 Global Hawk for precision airstrikes and intelligence, surveillance, and reconnaissance missions, or ISR for short. These platforms were, and for the most part still are, workhorses that have remained largely unchanged, at least structurally, with a lot of the innovation impacting what they fired and the sensors they carried. For example, in the February 23rd precision airstrike that killed Mohammed Yusuf Zayed Talay, and I guarantee I messed that name up, but he probably doesn't care because he's dead, who was the senior military leader of al-Qaeda affiliate Haras al-Din in Syria, an AGM-114 R9X variant of the Hellfire missile was used. The R9X is an exotic kinetic weapon that features an array of pop-out sword-like blades instead of a traditional high-explosive warhead with collateral damage. It's effective in targeting a specific occupant by slashing through whatever stands in the way, like a car roof. Sorry for that little tangent, but I'll never pass up an opportunity to talk about the R9X. Anyway, in recent battlefields across the globe, from irregular warfare against ISIS militants in Iraq and Syria to full-scale war between conventional militaries in Ukraine, a lot of the drones being used in the fight are smaller, meaning they're closer to troops on the ground, cheaper, and easier to maneuver in tight spaces. We'll look at how drones have evolved over time, how the way they're being used is changing today, and how militaries, the Marine Corps and the Army in particular, are getting drones out to the small unit level, to the average grunt, who they don't trust to have a hot plate in the barracks. By exploring where the tech started, where it is now, and where it's going, we will answer the most important question. What are drones going to do for that young grunt on the battlefield, and how it will either help them stay alive, kill the enemy, or if it'll just get misused by the company commander to supervise PT from their nice, comfortable office.
Our mission at Task and Purpose has always been to bring you ground-level, unbiased views on these types of issues. One of the ways we're able to do that is thanks to our team's subscription to Ground News. Ground News is a website and an app that gathers news from all over the world and puts it into one place. It gives me a clear way to navigate how every story is being told from different perspectives. For instance, like on Finland, one of NATO's newest members announcing plans to withdraw from the global treaty that bans anti-personnel landmines. There was a ton of information to sort through. Thanks to Ground News, I can quickly cut to the heart of the story, and out of 100+ sources covering the story, Ground News breaks down which sources cover issues on a more left, more right, or centrist view. And depending on where you look, Finland's move is either a strategic response to Russian aggression or a dangerous roadblock to international protections for civilians. But Ground News also helps sort by political bias and location, and even highlights government affiliation. It lets me choose stories with a high factuality, but my favorite part is their interactive map feature that lets me explore news from all over the world. We're offering 40% off their Vantage plan at groundnews.com/task. This is a great discount on their best plan exclusive to you, Task and Purpose viewers, so I really recommend you give Ground News a shot by clicking on the link in the description or pinned comment below.
From the early to mid 21st century, the Predator unmanned aerial vehicle was considered godlike. MQ-1s and later MQ-9 Reapers flew miles above mud-walled compounds and dated urban areas throughout the Middle East hunting. Their operators watched for patterns of life, thermal, visual, anything to identify the enemy, waiting for some unsuspected militant to walk into a courtyard and unknowingly seal their fate. These weren't off-the-shelf UAVs, but high-tech, high-altitude executioners, distant, deliberate, and lethal. What started as a reconnaissance platform quickly evolved into a hunter-killer tool, and that change happened fast. In early 2001, a Predator successfully fired a Hellfire missile during testing, and by the fall, it was already in combat. According to the National Air and Space Museum, what started as 90 drones in April 2001, 75 observation types, and 15 armable Predators had tripled over the following 4 years. 10 years later, the US military had nearly 11,000 drones in their inventory. According to the National Air and Space Museum, the Predator alone does not account for this increase, but it unquestionably established the potential of the UAV to shape the battlefield and geopolitics in ways that no aircraft, manned or unmanned, had done before. When the war in Afghanistan kicked off in October of 2001, these drones became the go-to for high-value targets. They were the tip of the spear for a remote warfare doctrine that America was still writing in real time. But here's the thing, the sheer might and power of Predator drones was never really a grunt's tool. They were controlled from places like Creech Air Force Base in Nevada, flying 20-plus-hour missions over Helmand while their pilots crushed Monster Energy drinks thousands of miles away. I remember in Afghanistan in 2011 and 2012 with 1st LAR, we had access to ISO drones flown by another unit. I think they were the Scan Eagle from Boeing, and that was a pretty big deal for us. The Predator and Reaper defined drone warfare in the global war on terror, but even as they became symbols of American might, the tech was already on the move, getting smaller, faster, and a hell of a lot closer to the fight. Fast forward to present-day Ukraine, and drone warfare looks more like something out of a sci-fi hackathon than a Predator feed. Think DJI Mavics with duct tape grenades dangling below them, FPV drones doing suicide runs straight into tank hatches, and tiny quadcopters flying through windows to scope out defensive positions and booby traps. Compared to Predators, which cost around $56 million, the small drones are a much cheaper option, which is a good thing because according to Ukrainian officials, they are losing around 10,000 drones a month due to Russia's counter-drone weaponry and tactics. But that's the point, quantity over survivability in a sheer numbers game. And as most troops and veterans know, we break stuff pretty easily, so having cheap replacements that get the job done is a must. But that's not the only factor. A few $100 worth of electronics can destroy a $1 million armored vehicle or even an aircraft, as we've seen with Ukraine using drones to take out air assets both in the air and on the ground. This is reminiscent of World War II when America was spitting out Sherman tanks like soda cans to compete with Germany's nearly unstoppable armored divisions. Between 1942 and 1945, we built around 50,000 of them. Imagine trying to stop that. Unlike several Sherman tanks ganging up on a single Panther, today's battlefield is like a scene out of a serial killer thriller. The most savage example, FPV or first-person view drones stalking and then executing kamikaze-style attacks, all in real time and with nearly high-def feeds. These aren't distant, blurry heat signatures on a Predator feed. These are close-up engagements where a drone can fly through your front window and end your squad. While Ukraine's military is coming up with its own MacGyver drone defenses, the US has been watching. In a war where traditional air superiority is contested or outright denied, cheap, small drones are dominating the battlefield, forcing tactics to change, and the US military is racing to counter it all. Now, here's where the real shift is happening. The Marine Corps and the Army are trying to make drones a staple in squads. The Marine Corps loves them so much, I wouldn't be surprised if they swapped out the Eagle and the Eagle Globe and Anchor for a drone or something. All jokes aside, the Marine Corps and the Army are actively developing tactics and technology to meet these eye-level killers wherever they are and complete their combat objectives. The Marines already have dedicated attack drone teams made up of volunteers within the Corps that drop ordnance from small drones in mock urban combat environments. So what does that really look like? The attack drone team now has a mission to become the experts at this, Colonel Scott Clomo, head of Weapons Training Battalion, Quantico, told Task and Purpose. Someone has got to be the best in any organization and then have the best knowledge to teach it, he said. The Army is doing its own thing, especially with lessons learned from Ukraine. The U.S. Army Combat Capabilities Development Command, or DEVCOM, 7th Army Training Command, Joint Multinational Training Group Ukraine, and the 173rd Airborne Brigade conducted live fire testing of drones rigged to drop explosives at the Grafenwohr training area, Germany, last February. Called Project Shiv, which is a pretty sweet name, the exercise involved flying FPV drones paired with a 3D printed casing for developmental munitions created by DEVCOM. The testing was highly successful, leaving soldiers pumped about the exciting and new capabilities they're taking to the battlefield. I've been dreaming of doing this stuff, Army Specialist Dean Aguirre of the UAS Platoon 1st Squadron 91st Cavalry Regiment 173rd Airborne Brigade said in an Army press release on the exercise. "We're little kids in a candy store. We were just completely enamored with the opportunity," he said. Soldiers participating in Project Shiv carried out multiple iterations of static and live one-way single munition drone strikes on targets. The project itself is research and development being conducted in line with the Army's favorite catch-all phrase, modernization. When it comes to drone tactics and how they force changes on the battlefield, the Army's Joint Readiness Training Center at Fort Johnson, Louisiana, is putting Army units to the test. This time, soldiers with the 101st Airborne Division 2nd Brigade took on JRTC's 1st Battalion 509th Infantry Regiment called Geronimo. Geronimo had a hometown advantage, but the Screaming Eagles bamboozled them with a deception plan, implementing commercially available tech. The 101st took to the Louisiana woods and implemented Raspberry Pis, which I do have a few of right here. This one is an 8 GB version, and these little guys are called Picos. But with certain software and easily attached hardware like an RTL SDR dongle, you can recreate large spectrum of radio signals and other electromagnetic signatures. With these, they made decoys to confuse their enemy. Captain Charlie O'Hagan, commander of the 101st Multifunctional Reconnaissance Company, said, "We came in with a deception plan because we wanted to show the enemy that we were in a place where we weren't, so that he would commit forces into our strongest defenses and not into our weakest. We created, with those decoys, battalion headquarters, company headquarters, and we put them throughout the southern areas." Their deception tactic worked and had Geronimo troops maneuvering where they normally wouldn't, wasting resources and time, and even exposing their artillery positions. FPV drones and commercial quadcopters are certainly smaller than their Predator ancestors, but even those drones are large compared to what else is being used. Nano recon is the rise of pocket-sized eyes that can be implemented by your basic grunts in the field. If you thought drones couldn't get any smaller, enter the Black Hornet, a tiny drone that a soldier can easily carry wherever the fight takes them. The Army refers to these as soldier-borne sensors, aka SBS systems, and back in 2018, leaders said that their goal is to field one SBF to each one of the Army's 7,000 squads. Since then, the service has spent $215 million on the tech, with the latest contract coming last October for $91 million for the Black Hornet 4. These mini drones have been in use by Special Forces teams in Afghanistan since 2019. They have a 25-minute flight time, are nearly silent, and can fly high enough to stay out of visual sight. Ukrainians who received these said that they're silent from 10 meters away, and at 20 meters they become practically invisible. Their capabilities are a game changer for the military scouts, who are the eyes and ears of combat teams on the ground. Sergeant Andy Huang, a combat engineer with the 152nd Brigade Engineer Battalion, said in an Army press release that the drones are small and lightweight, and with how high it can go, you can't really hear it. So you can recon a lot of stuff, and the bad guys can't see it. These mini drones can transmit HD video and photos in real time, eliminating the need to send a scout ahead into potentially dangerous territory to assess enemy numbers and location. It's not just active duty units testing and implementing these drones. The Army National Guard across multiple states began fielding them in 2024. There have been concerns raised over the cost of these units, which at one point cost nearly $200,000 per unit, which is the controller, 2 drones, and a docking station. Some tactical considerations need to be addressed also, starting with wind and cloud cover. Specifically, the Black Hornet 3 cannot fly in winds exceeding 15 knots, and thick, low cloud cover can impede signal transmission. There are also concerns with flight time, which includes warm-up, cool-down, and drone return time. These are all factors the operator on the ground will have to contend with, but even with these limitations, they seem to be performing well enough in Ukraine, and the Army is obviously comfortable with the tech. But it's not just fancy, expensive, off-the-shelf drones coming into play. There is a movement for DIY drones that can be built and flown from workstations right on the battlefield. The battlefields in Ukraine and now Russia have shown that you need more direct access to production, and that one size does not fit all. Technicians and operators on the ground there are making specialized drones at the small unit level to carry out specific missions, and the U.S. is paying attention. Task Force 99, a U.S. Air Force unit based in the Middle East, is building customizable and autonomous drones from commercial parts. These aren't multi-million-dollar procurement projects. They're lab builds using open-source schematics and parts from Amazon. The task force has created a 3D printed drone they're calling the Kestrel, which can be produced at around $2,500 per and has the potential to carry various payloads of up to 3 kilograms or about 6.6 pounds. 3 kilograms of C4 is enough to do serious damage to a house, so it doesn't take a good imagination to realize what it will do to a squad or an unprotected vehicle. To do this, the Air Force is pulling airmen from active duty, the Air National Guard, and Air Force Reserve who have expertise in drones, 3D printing, software development, and other applicable fields. They just happen to be the right people with the right skills that we discovered knew how to code or knew how to 3D print or something. Instead of waiting for traditional contracts and battling Pentagon red tape, they're building their own fleet and flying them in operational environments. This kind of bottom-up innovation is a wake-up call for the top-down bureaucracy that we all know and love. The next war won't just be about tanks or stealth jets, it'll be about 1,000 buzzing drones flying through alleys, smashing into trucks, taking out tanks, and fighting each other in the sky. The force that masters this first will dominate, and the US military is in a race against adversaries, yes, but also against its own bureaucracy. If we want to keep our troops alive and lethal, which I think we can all agree we do, we need to keep pushing drones to the lowest level possible. The grunts are ready. Now it's just a matter of giving them the tools and staying the hell out of their way. Alright, so first things first, I want to give credit where it's due here. This script was written by Josh Skovlund and the video was edited by Savvy. We do credit them in the description, but I want to shout out the other pieces of the team that make these videos happen. Any dummy can read from a screen, as you've all just watched, but it is the writers and editors that fool you all into thinking that I'm smart. If you still think I'm dumb, then credit to you. As I mentioned at the beginning of the video, I'll be taking over as the producer here and hosting some as well. I've done hundreds of short-form videos for the Task and Purpose newsroom on our social media channels, but this is a whole new world for me and I'll need all the help I can get. While the faces you see are new here, the mission of Task and Purpose will remain unchanged. We will still bring you high-quality videos covering military topics with a heavy focus on what it means for the average man and woman in uniform. I'm excited and nervous to get going. I genuinely care about Task and Purpose and all we have done and will continue to do, and I know the work that went into building this was pretty significant, which makes the stakes even higher. I really do appreciate this opportunity and I won't take the audience for granted. You'll see me in the comments with an annoying regularity, so if you have a question, concern, tip, or just want to tell me to hold my breath until I pass out because it's a lot better than listening to me talk, go right ahead. Also, while I have you here, check out these videos if you're interested in learning more about drones. Alright, that's it. You're dismissed, and I will see you all next time.